I'm gonna tell you the real reason why credit cards are not worth it. And I hope you're not expecting some Dave Ramsey catchphrase where I tell you that credit cards are evil because debt is the devil and your $5 7-Eleven payment that you put on that piece of plastic is gonna ruin your hopes and dreams of becoming a millionaire, because that's not who I believe you to be. I believe the viewers of this video are responsible. I believe that you know that credit cards should be paid off every month, that they should be treated like debit cards, that they should be treated like cash. So if that's the case, if I know you're responsible, why in the world am I telling you that credit cards are not worth it? I don't mean that credit cards in general are not worth it. I mean specifically that your credit card is not worth it. And I have no idea which credit card you have, but I can tell you right now, it is not worth it. But in order to explain myself, let me tell you a bit of my backstory and how I got here to making this video on a YouTube channel that talks about credit cards and promotes credit cards, and as someone who personally is working in the credit card space. It all starts a few summers back, and I was spending that summer working in the investment banking division of Goldman Sachs in New York City. And it's there I met a guy named Ben, and we came up with this idea of creating a stock market where you could buy and sell parts of a company, but not the whole. Imagine buying iPhones, but not Apple, or YouTube, but not Google, or Instagram, but not Facebook, and trading them as if they were their own stocks. We brought in another friend of mine, applied to Y Combinator, which was one of the first investors in Instacart, DoorDash, Dropbox, Coinbase, and so many other companies. And after applying several times over, they rejected us. But we applied again, they interviewed us, and then they rejected us. And then we were about to not apply again until they emailed us, asked if we were applying, and the third time must be the charm, because the third time they interviewed us and accepted us. And we were backed by Y Combinator. We ended up grinding away for another year plus on this new stock market that we were going to be building. We pivoted the idea a few times, and ultimately, for lots of reasons we can get into in another video, did not get it off the ground. So we went back to the drawing table because we had to figure out what we could actually build, because we raised money, we quit our jobs, and we were desperate to make a startup work. So we thought long and hard about what our specialties were, from Goldman Sachs to almost building our own exchange, and we came up with jewelry software. That is no joke. We thought it would be a good idea to launch jewelry software. But you know what? That was not a good idea. Turns out jewelers don't want to pay a lot for jewelry software. Turns out the ones who do want to use the same old software they've been using for 20 years. Turns out we knew nothing about jewelry software, and we picked it because we were literally going door to door in Manhattan asking small businesses which problems they had instead of focusing on the problems that we experienced in our own lives. And so very shortly after we launched that jewelry software, we ended up shutting it down and went back to the drawing table for our second time. And this time we thought about which problems we have experienced. And when we looked deep at that question, we realized all three of us have experienced the problem of trying to figure out which credit card to get. And I personally have friends reaching out to me all the time asking me, which credit card should I get? And I find myself asking them the same handful of questions back. And I find myself asking them questions about their spending. And we realized that we can automate that and that we can tell someone without a doubt which is the best credit card for them based on their personal spending and their personal preferences. And we don't just have to give them a one-time recommendation, but we guide them on a journey where we tell them which card to get now, and in the future, when it's time for them to get their next card, we'll notify them just in time for that next card. So they never have to think about which credit card to get again, and they'll be getting all of the points that their credit card obsessed friends get without any of the effort. So we decided to start building Pointwise. And at Pointwise, our goal is to figure out definitively which credit card to use. So you're probably wondering right now, and rightfully so, Why in the world am I saying, after working on this, that credit cards are not worth it? What could I possibly have in mind? And so the answer is surprisingly very simple. When we were building this algorithm, we had to determine which parts of a card matter and for how much. And we had to put a dollar value on every single piece of a card to try and understand how much that card is worth to any specific person. But the thing that we kept noticing is that humans think about credit cards in a very different way than computers. Humans break up credit cards into four main categories. There are multipliers, which tell you in a normal situation, what do you get back on any given purchase? You have the sign-up bonus, which tells you what benefits you get from signing up for the card and hitting some minimum required level of spend. You have benefits, which may or may not be applicable to you. And then you have the annual fee. And your job as a human is to try to calculate whether or not the annual fee is worth it and whether or not that card is the best card compared to the thousands of other cards out there. And you are looking at it in terms of these four different types of things that you then judge the credit card by. But when it comes to how a computer looks at credit cards, there's only one way a computer can evaluate whether or not a credit card is worth it. And that's by looking at all four of these different categories: the multipliers, the sign-up bonus, the benefits, the annual fee, and merge those all into just one measurement. Instead of trying to wonder, oh, the Robinhood card has a great 3x back on everything, that's awesome, let me get that. Or the gut reaction of the Built card, oh, I want to get anything back on rent, my 1x back on rent is going to be great, let me get that card. That's how humans think. When a computer thinks, we have to look at just one factor that can measure them all, and that is the dollar value for each part of the card. So the multipliers have to have a dollar value, the benefits have to have a dollar value, the sign-up bonus has to have a dollar value, and the annual fee has to have a dollar value. And when you look at credit cards like that, it became really clear to us that if you actually want to maximize every single point, you have to look at credit cards like a computer, not like a human being. A human being might say, and we've had countless conversations of people talking exactly like this: I have my Robinhood Gold card for restaurants and groceries. That gives me 4% back at restaurants, 4% back on groceries. I have my Chase Freedom card. That gives me 5% back on rotating categories. I have my Discover It card that also gives me 5% on different rotating categories. I have my Robinhood Gold card that gets me 3x back on everything else. I have my Amazon Prime card that gets me 5% back on Amazon. And I have my Built card that gets me 1x back on rent. That is the perfect credit card setup. But let's look at how perfect that credit card setup actually is. Let's be overly generous. And let's assume, for the sake of argument, that that person was able to get 5% back on everything. Let's assume that person is an average young professional who spends $5,000 a month on their card. But the exact amount isn't so important unless you're spending a ton of money every month. But for the sake of example, let's assume someone spending $5,000 a month on their credit cards, earning 5% back on every transaction. That person would be earning $250 a month in benefits from their credit card. And that is nothing to cry about. That is a great outcome. That means you are getting $3,000 a year in benefits from your credit cards, assuming all of those points are only worth 1 cent per point. But now let's look at this a different way. If we look at it in terms of multipliers, like our human instincts generally do, now we're looking at 5x back on everything. There's no way I can beat that. If I had a 5x back on everything card, that would be the best card. But really, that's not true. And this is why I'm telling you that your credit card is not worth it. Because nobody has a 5% back on everything card. And so you trying to maximize the different categories that you spend on is not worth 5%. And even if it were worth 5% on everything, it still wouldn't be worth it. Now, why is that? Because it turns out you have dozens, if not hundreds of credit cards that can actually give you more than 5% back on every transaction. How, you might ask? Well, it's very obvious. If we think about this in terms of the dollars you're getting back on every single purchase, instead of dividing it up into these 4 different types of categories, then it becomes glaringly obvious that almost every card is actually a better than 5% card when you're going after the sign-up bonus. A low sign-up bonus for a card might be $100 after you spend $1,000 on the card. And if you do the math, $100 back on $1,000 of spend is 10% back on everything. Granted, it's up to $1,000. But once you hit that sign-up bonus, there's nothing stopping you if you prioritize your cards the right way, and Pointwise will be able to help you do this if this is the route you want to go down. You can get a card that gives you $200 back after you spend $500 on the card, which is a 40% return on any purchase. And you can keep doing that almost infinitely as long as your spending isn't through the roof. Because there are so many cards out there that have these sign-up bonuses. And what that means is that your best credit card is never your current credit card unless you're currently going after a sign-up bonus. But once you've hit that sign-up bonus, your best card for any given transaction is almost never going to be the credit card that's in your wallet. So your credit cards are not worth it. What is worth it are the credit cards that you don't yet have. And even those credit cards that you can't keep long term because they don't make sense given the annual fee or given the benefits. They aren't enough to make it worth it for you long term. Almost always, the year 1 value of that card, which means the value of that card after accounting for the sign-up bonus, is going to be much higher than any 5% card you'd find out there. So when I say that credit cards aren't worth it, I don't mean credit cards aren't worth it in general. What I mean is that if you really want to get to your mathematical maximum of points, then your credit card is not worth it, but the credit cards you don't have, those are worth it. However, we do run into one very obvious problem here, which is that is a lot of work. And you don't know which credit card to get. You might not want to manage which credit card you're getting. You might not want to think about which credit card to have to spend on or to keep track of anything or when they're getting renewed. You might not want to worry about all of that. And so I'm not telling you that maximizing all of your points is worth the trouble. But what I can tell you is that no matter how much you want to maximize your points, if you want the 5% back on everything set up, or as close to that as you can possibly get, and then you want to never get another card again in your life, or you want to actually maximize your points so that without spending much money in your life, you can still travel for free anytime you want to and go anywhere in the world. Whatever your goals are, Pointwise will tell you which cards you need to get there and when, and will make it easy for you to manage. So if you want to get 1 card a year, Pointwise will do the math and tell you which credit card is best for you for this year. And if you want to be as aggressive as you can and get as many points as possible while not hurting your credit score, we can help you with that too. So here's my shameless plug. Whatever it is that you want to do with credit cards, Pointwise will help you get there. And if you want to use Pointwise, it is totally free and always will be. Now, before you click off, wait just 1 second because I have a personal guarantee for you at the end. But if this is interesting to you and you want to know the second this launches, I dropped our website down in the description of this video. And if you click or go to getpointwise.com and enter your email, you will be the first to know so that you can hit your credit card goals without having to sit through another one of these videos again if you don't want to. And here's that personal guarantee I promised you. If at any point anything is not working perfectly for you, you can call me directly and talk to me, not a robot, not a customer service agent. You can talk to me directly. And the information to do that will be in the app when you log in. So that whatever your credit card goals are, I promise we will do everything in our power to help you get there. If you like this, please leave a like and subscribe. And if you're interested in Pointwise, please sign up for our waitlist on our website, getpointwise.com.